Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this video is going to consist of plant supplies and materials that I find the most useful for me, that I tend to kind of reach towards and during my day-to-day plant care. So this video will not consist of any materials that I would be using for my shipping and or my plant propagation materials. This is just if I were a regular plant enthusiastic and I'm just having a plant collection, and these are things that I find the most useful and I just wanted to share them with you. Some of these will maybe help you for your plant journey. Just a disclaimer, none of the plant supplies I am discussing today is sponsored. So everything here is just things that I actually use on the daily. There is no paid promotion or anything to discuss any of these plant materials. So let's get to it. So to start off, I want to discuss the plant fertilizers that I tend to use most often. I've been in the plant collecting hobby since I would say 2016, so it's been a long time. I've used a lot of different type of brands and different type of strength and fertilizers and such, and I find that these are the ones that I end up always rebuying and using, and majority of my plants, actually not majority, all of my plants seem to really love it, and they're thriving and blooming for me, continuously growing a lot bigger. Please note that this is only applying to me and it might not work for you or your plant condition. So if you're going to change your plant fertilizer and such, I do recommend taking it slow and testing it out, making sure that what works for me will work for you. I wouldn't recommend you just completely change out everything that you currently are using, because if it's working for you, I don't see why you should change it. But if it isn't, these are the ones that I really like and I just wanted to share them with you. So first off, TPS1. This is one of the plant fertilizers that I tend to reach towards the most. This one in my Foliage Pro, I currently don't have anymore, so I'll just link all the materials I'm talking about down below in this description bar. So I use this every single watering. I water about once a week on all of my anthuriums and my aeroids, and yeah, every single watering I will be putting in a TPS1. Also, I'll be having, so I have all my plant supplies on my desk right now, so I'm just going to be reaching for them over here. But I always mix either Foliage Pro or TPS1 with my CalMag. This is the brand that I use, and I find that this really helps my plant grow bigger, has more definition in their shape, and they don't struggle when they are trying to come out in inflow and or a new leaf. Whenever I do see that my plant is struggling with their upsize and their leaves are wonky, it probably has to do with their amount of calcium or magnesium that's in the plant. So I also give this every feeding. So another supplement that I do feed to all of my plants, I don't do this weekly, but usually bi-daily, and or when I am repotting any plant that I really want to make sure it survives during the repot, I would either add Great White into the water, or I will just sprinkling it directly onto the roots as I am repotting. But if I'm just watering my plants, I will just mix this in with my fertilizer. What this microfungi does is it helps produce okay, let me just read what it says so I'm not saying something wrong. So it says it contains carefully selected mycorrhizal fungi well suited to various of soils, climate, and plants. Great White supplies beneficial microorganisms to soil and growing medium. In nature, these fungi build a microbial system in and on plant roots, enhancing the uptake of nutrients and water. See, I could have not said it any better. So pretty much it helps the plant uptake of the water in the soil, and it helps kind of navigate the plant roots to where the water and the nutrients are. Sometimes when you don't water your plants as often and your water is just consisted down below at the bottom of the pot. Sometimes the roots can't find where the water supply is, and then it starts to dry out more. So what the Great White does is it helps kind of navigate or guide the roots to the water supply, whatever it is in the soil. Sometimes, most likely, it's at the very bottom, and so your plants don't dry out as often, and you can water less. And or it's also, I find it very forgiving. Sometimes I miss watering for a couple days, and I find that after using Great White, it does give me more wiggle room of watering, and it's not drying up, and I find that the roots have, you know, less dry rot, the leaves are less crisping or color changing, and I do think that is because of the Great White. So with like TPS1, CalMag, My Foliage Pro, and any other nutrients fertilizer that I do use, I don't use it out of the bottle just because I find it harder to measure and such. So I always put it into a little dispenser. This is a glass one I really like. I find that glass brings a little bit more aesthetic, and it's easier to clean than the plastic ones, and it is recyclable. So I just this is one that I haven't used, but usually I would pour it in and then I'll label it. And since it is a see-through pot, I do store it in an area where there's no direct sunlight or grow light touching it. With the glass, I can see how much I have in there and when it is time for a refill, so you don't grab something and you think there's like a good amount in there and there's like 2 pumps left, and then you need to refill when you're in the process of plant water, and you don't want that to happen. So the next thing I want to discuss with you is spray bottles or mister. I used to use this a lot, but I am leaning more towards just the black spray, just because if you're using just water to spray or mist, then this type of spray is totally fine. But if you're using like hydrogen peroxide or other substances that can't come into contact with like sunlight, I would recommend a black bottle. So I find that this is a lot easier to use, and it is a little bit cheaper than the mister. This one doesn't have any label in it, which means it's just water for me, but I do label when I have like hydrogen peroxide, isopropyl alcohol, or other solutions. And I find that this is very useful on the daily, because if I find any like mold or things like that, then I can just use this to spray on the plant, and I'm not worried that the hydrogen peroxide or the solution here will go bad, because it is in the black UV safe packaging. So the next one I want to talk about is a plant light meter. I find this super useful to determine if your plant is getting enough light, or does it need more light, or is it getting too much light. So everyone has a different preference on how much light they want their plant to be at. I measure mine in foot candles. So this one in particular only measures foot candles, or LUX. And I find foot candles the most easiest for me to understand. It also has temperature on here, but I don't really use it for temperature. So for foot candles, I usually have all my plants stay about, at least the lowest is 100 foot candles up to 1,000 foot candles, but it also depends on what type of plant it is. But majority of my plants, I do want it to stay between 100 to 500 foot candle. Anything above 500, I do find that it's too much for my plants, and I start to see bleaching on there. My plants will still bloom for me at 200 to 300 foot candle, and I find that that's probably usually the sweet spot, because I don't find any light bleaching. The plants are still growing in size, and they're still blooming for me. The next one on the list are shears. So I like this one because of the shape. I find it very easy when I'm trying to take like butt cuts and stuff, that I can maneuver this way in there and cut it without cutting any of the roots. You can use any other shears, but I do recommend shears over like, regular scissors and stuff, because they cut more precisely and they're a lot sharper, so then you don't get like bruising or mess up cuts when you're trying to take a butt cut, or if you're just trying to cut off a leaf or an inflow, I find these a lot easier to manage. I do recommend that each time you do use your shears, make sure you kind of use like rubbing alcohol or soap and water to kind of rinse off the material, because if not, there's a chance that your shears might develop mold, or not mold, rust, and they might not be as sharp anymore. And plus, it prevents infection from one plant to another if you were to have a plant infection going on. So these are plant pots that I got from Alibaba, and I find myself continuously using these compared to any other regular plant pots. These are just two sizes. They come in two more sizes bigger than this, and in between of these two, and then a smaller one of this. The reason why I like it so much, because it is in square, so you can set one pot right next to the other one, and on top of each, like in front of each other, in front and on the side of each other, and you'll still have a lot of room. I do find the circle pots take up more room, and these are clear, so then you can see the roots growing in here. So this is an example of one of the plants I have. This is a Report Crosswoods Restauri, and you can see that you can clearly see there's a root coming out of the soil, and I like to, and this is one of the reasons why I really love this pot, because you can monitor the roots to see if they are healthy or not, if you find the roots having any dry rot and or wet rot. Is that, yeah, I think that's the right term, but wet rot. I don't usually, root rot, oh my goodness. Root rot, excuse me. Oh my goodness. So I usually have a lot more dry rot than I am with root rot, just because I am a little bit more on the underwatering side than I am over. And plus I have so many plants, so I try to water at least once a week, but sometimes I forget, or I don't get it to it in time, and plants usually take up more water when they're growing out a leaf and or an inflow. So yes, I do really like this. And as we are talking about this, another thing that I tend to reach for a lot are these little, oh, I just spilled on myself. Ah, it's okay. So I find that these little square catch pots go perfectly with the plant pot itself. So with these pots, I think there's only two sizes, but I might be wrong. It comes in a 4-inch and or a 6-inch pot, and I find that it fits majority of those type of pots. And if it doesn't fit these, then I have these small 4-inch pots that are more circular. So the 4-inch pot squared and the circular are kind of practically the same size, just the square is a little bit bigger in my opinion. But yes, I buy all these in large quantities. I believe these come in like a pack of 30, while these come in a pack of like 50. So here's a box full of them. Another reason why I do really like these pots, because they have these little in-cave gadgets that they stack very nice on top of each other and very secure. So if you have it kind of apart, you can just turn it until it falls into the crevices. So I always have these on hand. I'm like magically appearing with new plant stuff. So talking about plant pots, sometimes I find that if it is a plant of my personal collection and I want to keep it in a pot for a long-term use, I usually go with self-watering pots. And these are my two go-to ones. The first one is on the right, the gray one is from Luchuza. And then the second one over here is an Amazon ceramic plant pot, and they're both in self-watering pots and practically the same size. I do like both of them a lot, but I do find the ceramic one a little bit cheaper. So I will go ahead and link both of them down below. They're heavy. So as we are discussing self-watering plant pots, the ceramic one, if you do end up overwatering it, you actually take out the inner pot and dump away the water. However, I find that majority of the Luchuza pond, mostly the Classico planter, you can't do that, and sometimes you end up with more water than you want on the water meter and it overflows, and when you do that you run a higher chance of root rot if you cannot discard the water. So I find this a very, very handy tool. It is a manual water pump I got on Amazon. You just stick this end into the side where the water meter is. There should usually be a little hole there, and then you just pump it, and then the excess water comes out of this hole, and I just have, like, you know, a container or something to catch that water. So I find this a lifesaver practically, because before I found this, I always had to kind of slowly tilt the pot, and then it gets messy because sometimes the soil, or before when I was using leca and stuff, would fall out. This is a very quick method. You just pump it, water comes out, and then the water meter goes down. Put the next thing I'm talking about with this, okay? So since we are talking about measuring light, what type of grow lights do I use? So my room does not get any direct sunlight. I always have this curtain closed, just because if I have it open, you can see me from the street, because our house is pretty close to the street and I don't want anyone to look in, so I always have these curtains closed. So everything in my room that's in ambient condition survives fully on grow lights, and I will continue to be using until, you know, they don't sell it anymore. So the first two I use is Brianna grow lights. I'm holding it like the Star Wars light sticks. So this is a it doesn't even say, but I believe this is a T8 and this is a T5. It's a little bit smaller than the T8. T5 has stronger light, but it's more focused, more narrow focusing light beam, while the T8 is a little bit more spread out. So I use both, but I usually use the T5, or the smaller one, in my IKEA grow cabinets, and then I use the T8 in my grow lights I have on my metal rack, just because I feel like this one spreads out more and this one is a more narrow concentration, so it's for like a smaller surface area. So the other light that I do use is the mother grow light. I have two of these just facing my IKEA shelves that contains all of my mother plants, and I find these very good. You can either have it hanging like this by taking the bottom out, or you can use the bottom stand and have it standing straight. I usually just having it standing straight. And lastly, the other grow lights that I do use, it's attached to my ceiling, so I can't really show you, but they are Sansi grow lights. That is 36 watts. I have seven of them right now on my ceiling. I will snip a little picture on the side to kind of show you what they look like. If you guys want a more in-depth video of how I put them together and how I hang it up, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to show you. And this is a lot cheaper than the Soltech lights. The Soltech lights do look really, really nice, but they are more on this pricey end. So this is more of my, you know, DIY cheap version of it, and it seems to work pretty well for me. I do want to try the Soltech lights one time to kind of see if they live up to expectations. It's just right now it's way out of budget. So yes, I will go ahead and link that down below as well. The next one I want to talk to you about is my handy dandy label maker. I feel like I talk about this almost every single one of my videos, and I love it so much. It is just a smart mini label maker. You kind of turn it on, and then it connects to your phone through an app, and then you're able to kind of just type, choose what font, what size. If you want it bold, italic, anything like that, you type it in, you click print, and then it comes out on here. You just open up this, put the label stickers in, close it, and then it's ready to go. And if you click it, it comes out just a regular one if you just want to use that for like, you know, but yeah. So with the label maker, you need plant tag, right? So these are my top 2 favorite plant tags of all times. So the first one, it comes in a pack of like 500 of them. You might not need these much. I'm sure there is, you know, a smaller quantity if you don't need 500 label makers. I sell plants as a side job, so I do run by these really quick. But each of these also comes with a pen. Each of this comes with a permanent marker that comes in every single of your packages. So I find that very handy if you don't want a label maker and you want to write it by hand. But other than that, I also use these black tags. Since my label maker prints out on a white background, tape it onto here and then it works well. The reason why I really like these black ones because they're very durable and they're very tall. So when you stick it into your plant pot, it's easier to read. So I use the black ones for any of my plants that are, you know, in a 6 or bigger inch pot. And then I use my smaller plant tags for anything that's under 6 inch. So it just depends on like visibility and of how easy I can read the plant tags while it's, you know, inserted into the soil. So since I do have a lot of plants, I find watering sometimes a pain in the butt. So I know a lot of people do use like plant hose and stuff like that, but it just doesn't work with the structure of my house. And you know, it's weird if I were to drag a plant hose super far throughout the house just so I can get, you know, plant water to my plants. So I usually have a jug, not a jug. So I usually fill up like a bin of water and I have my boyfriend carry it upstairs for me because my plant room is upstairs and our distilled water is downstairs. So I water all my plants with just distilled water, and after that I would take a jug, scoop up the water, and then pour it to each plant. The reason why I want to talk about this type of pitcher is because you can pour it straight or sideways because it has this crevices. Sometimes my plants are in a place that's hard for me to kind of structure my hand to water it. So it's kind of nice. I have, you know, 3 options of how I want to water my plant. And then it doesn't make, you know, a huge mess. So I do recommend, you know, a pitcher of water and a bin, and you can scoop the water out and then, you know, manually do it. And I can usually water like 5 plant pots at a time with this, you know, and then just, you know, scoop, repeat. So before I usually have like, you know, a very small container to store my soil in, but lately I've been using this bigger bin to store my soil, and I find that this is very, very useful. It has a lid and everything so nothing falls out. I also use this size bin to store all my water, and that's usually enough for all my plants during my weekly watering. And so everyone has like, you know, a certain type of way they like to scoop up their soil, but I have this half a cup plastic thing that I think I got from like Goodwill or like the dollar store or something, and I've been using this forever. It's been with me for like since the beginning of my plant journey, and I'm still using it today. I always find myself coming back to this because I find that this 1/2 cup measuring cup is the ideal amount of soil I like each time I were to scoop up soil and, you know, put it into the pot. Other people use, you know, a lot of other things, but measuring cups are my thing, I guess. Okay, we're almost at the end. I only have like 2 more things I want to show you. So the first thing is all of my plants that are in a bin. So I do have an IKEA cabinet, and I also have plants in ambient conditions, but for a majority of my bud cuts and my seedlings, I have it in a proper propagation bin, just like this. These bins are like a lifesaver, so I don't have to water as often since I have it in this bin, and also it keeps the humidity about like 85 plus all the time. So these bins are lifesavers. And I used to use like, you know, a drill gun to drill these holes, but this has been my lifesaver. So this has been a lifesaver. It's just a slaughtering tool that you would normally use to slaughter, you know, metal, not metal, metal, yeah, probably metal and other things. But I use this, and when it's hot, I use it and I drill little holes in here, just like that. And then it creates a little air pockets. So I have a couple on top and then a couple on the sides, so then there is air kind of flowing in and out of this, so then I don't have to occasionally take out the lid. I can just leave it the way it is, and I find that that works very well. There's no, you know, mold or fungus and stuff growing on there because there is enough airflow, as well as keeping the ambient, not ambient, as well as keeping the humidity condition on a very good level. All right, that's all I had for you. These are my current favorite plant materials, plant supplies, plant fertilizers that I've been reaching for most of 2024. It might change this coming year, 2025, but who knows? If it does, then I'll make an updated video at the end of the year or the beginning of next year. But I feel like majority of these items has been my go-to for the past 2-3 years, and so far none of them has failed me, and I continually want to use them. So maybe I will find more things to add onto the list, but we'll see about that. But thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions or video requests that you would like to have me make. And other than that, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.